to stay alive. Trying to find me shawty and make her mine. Now I'll find one in no time. With the help of my homies, I'm going out with my bros. With my bros.
All right, bruh fans. Well, this is it. The season finale of Bruh. Episode 24 entitled Bad Cologne. And we're probably not talking about Axe body spray, but dang it. Mike, oh boy, when I tell you Mike took some L's this episode. All right, let's look at the synopsis. Pam jealously questions Andy about the nature of her work with Mike. Bill seeks John's help tracking down Regina. What an episode, guys. Holy crap. All right, so the final episode review of season 1. Just to give you a heads up, I do plan on doing a Bruh season 1 overview video where I talk about some of the highlights of the season, some of the things I liked, some of the things I didn't like, and overall my impressions of this, as it is one of Tyler Perry's new shows. Obviously one of the first ones on BET Plus, along with Ruthless. And also I will be doing a Bruh versus Sisters season 1, talking about both shows during their respective season 1 runs and deciding which one I feel was the better show. Now, before going further in the video, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Look, it's the freaking season finale. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Also, follow me on social media. Links to all that good stuff is in the description box below. Hit subscribe. We just hit 150,000 subscribers. Let's try to get to 200,000. So hit subscribe. And most importantly, if you haven't done so, click that bell icon to turn on all notifications. That way you stay informed whenever I post content to the channel. Barely 25% of my views come from actual subscribers. 75% come from non-subscribers. So if you are a non-subscriber, thanks for being here, but please hit subscribe. Now, this episode, it was like a bag of trail mix. Like, there are certain pieces of it I liked and certain pieces I didn't like. And I think we all know which part of the episode I could have totally done without, that being the Bill Regina. So I'm going to do things a little differently. I'm going to work this episode backwards because I feel like I have the most to say about the first part of the episode. So this episode was pretty much chopped up into 3 pieces. Pam, Andy, and Mike during the first 10 and a half minutes. Well, technically 10 minutes if you subtract the theme song and the recap from last week. About an 8-minute scene between Alice, John, and Bill at A&J Sandwich Shop. And then we go over to Tom's place for the last remaining 2.5 to 3 minutes of the episode. So let's start there. This scene, number one, I did not expect it. Not just because it wasn't in the episode synopsis, but to be completely honest, given that we had such a unnecessarily long scene between Bill, John, and Alice, I honestly thought we weren't going to see Tom in the episode, considering we didn't see Bill in the last episode. But Tom's at his place. I guess he's either getting ready for work, maybe he's off today. He's just chilling at his place, drinking some, I don't know, coffee, tea, or beer. I don't know what time of the day it is. I'm assuming it's, yeah, it technically has to be morning because it was nighttime over at, or evening time over at Mike's place. So yeah, it was the next morning because John was like, Bill, you look better than you did yesterday. So yeah, it's about, early in the morning. So I think Tom was drinking some coffee or something. I don't know. I don't really drink coffee, but he was drinking something. I don't know. He was just chilling at his place. Sorry, I'm overthinking things. He gets a phone call, and it turns out that it's a familiar voice, the patient at the hospital, Leah. I think this is the first time we heard her name. I could be completely wrong. Maybe it was in the end credits, but I never cared to actually check it. But basically the domestic violence patient that Tom was trying to help calls Tom, says she needs help because, she got pretty banged up. And, hey, I think I'm at your door. Ruh-roh. Tom answers the door. Here we go. Leah is pretty banged up. She's bleeding in the face. Tom is like, okay, how did you find me? It's pretty easy to find someone when you have their name and phone number. That is scarily accurate. I don't even know if scarily is a word, but it's frighteningly accurate how that is so true. Not to mention she's the wife of a cop, so I'm pretty sure some of the detective skills probably rubbed off on her. So in any case, she's trying to get some help. She's like, we gotta get you to the hospital, and Leah's like, no, if I go, he'll find me. And he pretty much starts to examine her, and she kind of screams when I think he touches one of her arms or shoulders. So basically, something seems broken. So as Tom is trying to do what he can to kind of patch her up, there's a knock on the door. Leah is scared, and Tom is looking concerned, and that's the cliffhanger. Let me say, holy crap, this scene was amazing. It pretty much did a great job of setting up the seriousness of the Tom storyline. The fact that Leah is finally accepting help despite it taking her, the condition she's in now to accept it. And the fact that they did a good job of building up hey, if Leah could find Tom so easily, who's to say that her husband didn't track her to Tom's place? So when you have to knock on the door, it honestly is a reason for concern, because that could indeed be her husband at the door. And if so, what's going to happen to Tom if he gets kind of caught in the crosshairs? If, let's say, the husband tries to drag her back, or, we'll just have to wait and see. But overall, it was a very, very, very strong cliffhanger. This episode had a great beginning, a very lackluster middle, and a spectacular ending. Now let's go to the middle scene, which was the honestly weakest scene. This scene of the episode really felt too bruh. What I mean by that is it was one of those scenes that was dragged out far too long, repetitive dialogue, and this could have been trimmed down to easily 3 minutes or less. Bill comes over to the sandwich shop, says good morning to Alice, looking for John. He's, trying to see what's up. And, John's like, well, hey, bro, you're looking better than you did yesterday. He's like, well, I'm not feeling better. And it's like, Alice pretty much comes up and says, yeah, I'm not giving you Regina's number. I like that. I'm like, good. She's going to nip it in the bud fast. Then Bill's like, hey, I'm going to move out to LA. I'm going to find her, man. And, I'm not going to give up. I don't hate the actor. I believe his name is Monty. Great dude. I think we chatted a few times on Instagram, mainly about Bill in the comment section of some posts, but about how I strongly disagree that what Bill is doing is out of love. Alice called it for what it was. You're being insensitive because she's asked you for space, and you're basically going to stalk her. I think at some point he says, I want to hire a PI, a private investigator, in order to track her down. I got some strong leads. And it's like, my nigga, she left. John and Alice pretty much broke it down. The problem was this scene was just way too long. It did not need to be as long as it was. Because when Alice like, Negro, she moved halfway across the country. See, she said she needed space. You clearly aren't listening. Leave her the hell alone. Well, what about my needs and everything? It's like, how is us being apart going to help? Like, if somebody don't put this dude in the loop, we talked about Amanda from the Haves and the Have-Nots, Veronica from the Haves and the Have-Nots, Eddie and Randall from If Loving You Is Wrong, and the list goes on about the character, Jason and Kyle from The Oval, and so many other characters from the Tyler Perry shows who need to be locked up in a loony bin. We need to add Bill to that list because this fool is delusional. I mean, like Alice said, he must be on something. He must have hit his head a little too hard when he fell off that horse, but this is not good. I think this is a poor representation of someone who is allegedly in love with someone, but they're being not even comedically oblivious to the signs that someone doesn't want you. Like, she literally begged you to your face, Bill, leave me alone. I'm not giving you my number. I will maybe call you sometime. I need space to myself to figure things out. This when I get to my video going over the season, the Bill storyline was easily the weakest thing about the show. Like, it started off with interest. I was actually intrigued, but as it went on, I felt like it was treated more as a joke as opposed to a serious story about a man who had it all when it came to love, but just didn't realize it. And now that she's moved on, he can't accept it, actually ruins the wedding, and now doesn't even respect this woman enough to give her the space that she so graciously requested. So if anything, Bill has been written to be such an unlikable character. This scene was just not good. I mean, for a finale, it just ate up way too much time. I just feel that's why I know I'm going to say this a little early, but let me just put it this way. I'm scoring the finale a 5 out of 10. I'm going to be completely honest, because given the fact, like I said before, the Andy, Mike, and Pam scene was about the first half of the episode. And given how long and drawn out the scene was at the sandwich shop, and the fact that Tom was in the last episode, but Bill wasn't, I honestly thought the cliffhanger would just be Bill leaving the sandwich shop. And I would have been like, this was a awful finale where only the first half was decent and the back half was not good. So I would have gave it a half and half score, 5 out of 5. But the Tom scene actually did good. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I wrote down the wrong number. Not a 5 out of 10. This was a 6 out of 10. I'm sorry, 6 out of 10. I was looking at my notes for another episode of a show I watched. Sorry about that. Yeah, the finale, 6 out of 10. You're probably wondering, well, Jeremy, you just said the first half of the episode was decent. The back half wasn't good except for the Tom scene. So shouldn't it be like a 7 or 8? I will get to the first part soon enough. So, yeah, in the midst of Alice trying to, exchange sex for possibly Regina's phone number, and then, John going on about how Alice showed up to his kindergarten graduation when he was 5 in a stripper outfit. This was just a bit much. This just ate up too much time, and it didn't do well for the pacing of the episode. So yeah, he still plans to go to LA, and Bill leaves. So pretty much he's just going to throw out everything Regina was pleading with him to do, to leave her alone, to give her space, and yet he's going to LA. Bill's the worst character. All right, so now we go to the first part. Now, who's to say, well, Jeremy, what about in the beginning of season 2? What if he doesn't go to LA? What if Regina actually comes back to him or something? I don't know, but based on what we've seen, this is not a good look for his character. So now we get to the first part of the episode. Yeah, thanks for hanging. If you've been in the video this far, thanks for hanging in there. There's a lot to talk about here. Okay, first of all, holy crap. I like this scene. Partly because it turned out exactly how I predicted. If you follow me on Instagram, hence why I say, guys, go down to that description box. There are links to all the social media. I post a lot. I said in one of my pictures on bruh, I'm like, here's what I think is going to happen. Pam's going to come over, expect the worst. Her and Andy are actually going to get along, team up against Mike. Because that could go to the episode of Sisters recently in season 2 when Fatima recommended, I think, Mike to help out Andy, but then it's like, oh, that asshole. So I'm like, this scene could definitely be the catalyst for why Andy thinks so badly about Mike, because he's a dog, and this scene proved it. What I didn't expect was the falling out between Pam and Mike. Let me just say the acting was on point. And I believe these two wonderful actors do have a relationship in real life. And let me just say, I don't know if they were dating at the time of the filming of this episode, but, well, not just this episode, but their chemistry in previous episodes, it really shines. So congratulations to them. That's why I say, people like, you want to work on the Tyler Perry show? Jeremy, you're single. Apparently, you need to get on the Tyler Perry show to meet your soulmate. I don't really act, so, I don't think I could do it. But just congrats to them. I hope it really works out for the long run. Y'all are cute together. I mean, this really reminds me of like a Martin and Gina scene from Martin. But as much as, okay, let me just talk about the things I liked before the things I didn't like. Hey, you're probably wondering, Jeremy, you just boosted up the scene. There are times in these shows I review things where the acting is on point from the actors in the given scene, but there are things about the scene that I don't like in regards to maybe the tone, the setup, or in the execution, but I will get to that. So Pam comes in, she meets Andy because she brought Mike dinner. Andy's like, I think I should go, but Pam's like, no, I want to talk. I want to ask you some questions. And she pretty much is straightforward with, are you two seeing each other? Andy's like, no. And then Pam's like, oh, okay, here's the thing, because I went from being his side chick to him asking me to be exclusive. And at this point, they both team up against Mike. Well, I think y'all need to shut up. I'm like, well, damn, Mike. They go in further into the conversation because Andy has been over to Mike's house 3 times. We've only seen 2 times on screen. I think it was in episode 2 when we first saw Andy in the show, when she came over to Mike's place. And then, of course, we see her there now. So obviously there was at least 1 time during the duration of Bruh season 1 where Andy came over, but we never saw that on screen, because in episode 2, that was their first time meeting face to face, because that's when Mike was like, well, it's good to see, a sister working at the law firm, because, he's a brother. So that was their first time canonically meeting, and also at Mike's place. So there was at least 1 time between episodes 2 and 22 or was it 23? Wait, when was Andy? Because Bellamy, it was episode 22 or 23. I forgot. Hang on. The episode ended with Pam, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it was episode 22 when we saw Mike and Andy there working, I think. Look, it was between episodes 2 and either 22 or 23. Okay, I'm sorry. Look, it's like 4:30 in the morning. I'm tired. Okay, so they pretty much go over the fact that, wait, does he flirt with you? Yes, he does. And I told him to stop, and they literally go in on Mike about wearing the bad cologne and everything. It's like, that's the funny thing. He called me begging me to come over, bring him or fix him dinner and spend the night. But then like 20 or 30 minutes later, he calls me and literally tells me not to come over because he has to work late. And then they pretty much do what I do, which is try to put together a timeline of, okay, now where did things go wrong? Oh, because we both work for a similar client, the same client. Our boss, Bellamy, came over, asked us to, work on a case before Tuesday's settlement. So I agreed to stay over. And I had been here for, hang on, let me read my notes. A few hours. I think she said it was like 2:30 when the phone call came through about coming over for dinner, and then also when Bellamy asked them to work together. Remember, they weren't originally going to work on this case that night, or at least at Mike's place, because Mike was like, okay, so you want to do this at your place or mine? I don't know if that was a reference to doing the settlement at one of their apartments or lofts, or this meant to go to the office to do it. But Andy was like, no, we're already here. Let's go ahead and crank this thing out. And it was at that point, this was post discussion about why men need to mature and all. And then when Mike was trying to have the discussion on a level playing field, Andy decided to swap it up, saying, no, we're not having this conversation, even though Mike was literally not being an asshole when he was trying to say, well, we can't just bring down men without addressing that women sometimes are immature and need to grow up as well. And then after Bellamy left, he's like, oh, I guess we're going to have that conversation or continue this conversation anyway. How about I get us some dinner or call in some dinner? No. How about some coffee? No, I'm good. At that point, I don't think it was Mike flirting. It was pretty much Mike trying to be a gentleman, and he was being a bit smug. I don't think it was him flirting. It's like, oh yeah, he offered to fix me dinner. I honestly think Mike was just trying to do that to prove to Andy not all men are dogs, and also the fact that they agree. Well, she was the one who suggested that they work on this case right now, so it could be a long night, and it might require some food or coffee to work. I don't think at that moment Mike was flirting or being an asshole. He was trying to be generous, and it was Andy who was being cold to him. All right. So at that point, Mike just got told off, and Andy gives Pam her business card saying, hey, let's kind of link up so we can hang out sometime. I'll hit you up maybe in the next week. That way you can hang out with me and my girls. So I need to see Pam on an episode of Sisters, or at least some kind of scene, or even mention of the fact that, Pam hung out with Andy, Sabrina, Karen, and Danny. I would love that. That would be awesome. It wouldn't surprise me if Danny had heard about Mike somewhere. because Danny gets around. So, with that being said, Andy leaves and she pretty much is smug like, oh, I'm going to have a good night. Much better one than you, Mike. See you around. And I'm like, wow. So Mike gets chewed out. Pam gets a new friend. And this adds more fuel to the fire of how men are dogs and women apparently are not wrong ever. Okay, so now we get to Pam, who, and this goes back to what they say about a woman: when she's mad and she smiles, you're in trouble. And I always said Pam has the best facial expressions. So when she sits down and smiles, I'm like, usually this is the part where she smiles and like Mike says something, and then even though she should rightfully so be pissed off, they make up or they start having sex. But no, this time she was serious. So she sits down and she's asking Mike some hard-hitting questions. All right, so the questions kind of start off with, it's like, don't lure me. Oh yeah, that was Mike's whole thing. It's like, don't lawyer me right now. I'm like, well, even though you're technically working off hours, there are 2 lawyers in the vicinity, so Mike, questions will arise. That's the thing. It's like, hey, who was representing Mike? I feel like Andy and Pam were representing Mike based off their own similar experiences with him, but there was nobody really on Mike's side. So I feel like the case should be adjourned because there was certainly no order in this court. Because even when Mike was like, can you take this in another room? Shut up. I'm like, well, damn, Mike. All right, so Pam starts off asking, is like, do you like her? Yes, I like her. Do you want to sleep with her? No. It's like, no, you lying mother. You would have slept with her if you had the chance. Like, if you would have, softened her up, you would have slept with her. And Pam goes on to basically say, and this is something that I never thought would be brought up. And this, because me, in my reviews, I'm like, man, this is what pisses me off. Because I grew up around people like, guy friends like this, the good looking guys that the girls went for, not me. And like, they were the assholes. And it's like, these are the kind of guys that the girls would be with no matter how many times they got treated badly. Turns out the thing that kept Pam coming back to Mike, regardless of how immature, possessive, and questionable he was, it was the fact that they were always both honest with each other. And the fact that Mike wasn't honest about the whole Andy scenario is what pisses Pam off. And she says that she's done and she leaves. Here's my issue with this scene. Like I said before, the acting top notch. I liked it. Every time she kept telling Mike to say something, use your mouth, use your words. Every time he attempted to say something, she would cut him off. I don't know if it's because apparently he was just feeding her lines that she was used to hearing. Or it's like, I wanted you home. He was trying to be on. Okay, I have a lot more. This is going to be a long video, guys. I mean, it's already long, but Mike was trying to communicate how he felt. And I'm not saying I'm completely on Mike's side, because here's exactly how I think things will play out from the mind of Mike. I'm a man, so I know how I'm thinking like he's thinking. He says exactly how he felt and what he was thinking. And then because Pam walked out on him, all of a sudden she's the villain, he's the victim. And now he's going to be mad based off the fact that he said, fuck, and then threw the chair. No, he went to the door when she left. Pam, wait. And I'm thinking to myself, well, damn, I hope somebody eats that dinner. And I'm sorry, I'm stupid. I'm sorry. I was like, I hope he eats. I mean, I'm sure she, did a good job picking up the dinner. And then, wait, I forgot if she said, I think she said, I got the ingredients to fix it. So, wait, because then she went over to the sandwich shop to talk with Alice, and then pretty much went over to the apartment. Yeah, I don't know if she fixed it or bought it. I forgot. Either way, she brought the dinner, and now it's just going to sit there. Because honestly, the fact that, you know what? Pam was about to leave and when Andy was still there. And then Mike's like, no, where are you going? It's like, no, I'm going to go out. And then Andy was like, no, I'm going to go. It was nice meeting you. I thought like at that point, Pam was just going to grab the bag of dinner and then her and Andy would just go hang out and eat or something. That's what I thought would happen. So he goes back, throws a couple of chairs around, sits down. He's like, fuck. And I'm like, yeah, you certainly aren't fucking tonight. Mike, you messed up. Okay, so I'm sorry. Let's get back to the scene. he pretty much expresses that I wanted you here, I wanted you home. But as much as he wanted Pam over, he wanted to see what that was with Andy, basically seeing if he had a shot at Andy. And the thing about Pam was, look, Mike, I don't care if you like someone else, as long as you're honest with me about it. But the thing is, you're the one who asked me to be exclusive, yet you still are. I mean, basically, that's like Mike says, like, you know, it's like a habit. He has this thing about wanting to explore. It reminds me kind of that episode of Boy Meets World where, what was her name? Was it Lauren, the girl that Corey met at the ski loft when they took a ski trip? And then Lori came down from the mountains to find Corey. And I think they had a kiss in an episode, and Corey got a letter from Lauren, and I forgot if it dropped out of his bag or something, and Topanga found it. I need to rewatch that. Those are some of the best episodes of Boy Meets World. And the fact that Corey asked Topanga if he could go on a date or hang out with Lauren because he needed to know for sure how he felt. And Topanga said, do it. But then it came to bite him in the ass. And then she called things off between them. And then she went out with someone else. But then at the end of the day decided they needed to be together. And it's like, what? Okay, so I said in the previous episode, I didn't have a problem with Mike calling it off with Pam that particular night because he had to work. My issue was the fact that he acted so cold, stoic, and he was an asshole because, like she said, he did beg for her to stay the night and fix dinner and whatnot. But for him to call back like 30 minutes later and just literally kind of shut it down, without really being somewhat remorseful, he pretty much just kind of, you know, brushed it to the side. Yeah, now's not a good time to come over tonight. How about we just link up tomorrow for breakfast? That was cold and insensitive. If he would have said, hey, my boss stopped by, I'm working with one of my colleagues on a case, and it's going to run through most of the night. I know I asked you to come over. Is it possible we could do something tomorrow instead? That would have been a lot better because the way that Mike acted over the phone in the last episode justifies why Pam was upset in this episode. And then the fact that after all the talk of him wanting to be a good man, a good boyfriend, being in an exclusive relationship with Pam, yet you still tried to pull the same shit of trying to hook up with somebody else, isn't a good look. I mean, the argument could be made, though, was Pam in the right? Because she listened to Miss Alice and said, hell no, you ought to go in there, bust in there, and see what's going on. It's a tough call. Because Pam walked in as Mike and Andy were kind of breaking the ice between each other. I'm not necessarily saying they would have slept together, but Andy wasn't as cold towards Mike as she was in episode 22. So, oh yeah, that's right. It was episode 22 because episode 23 is when they finished the case. Yeah, I was right, 22. So 23 is when, you know, that's when Pam walked in at the end. As much as Pam should trust Mike, it's also the fact that Mike was in the wrong himself, because it's like he was wrong with how he brushed off Pam after asking her to kind of throw things down and come over. And then he was being honest about the Andy situation. I just don't think Pam was being fair. I don't think it was fair when Andy refused to see both gender sides of the conversation about men and women. I don't think Pam was fair when it came to Mike expressing how he felt. And like I said before, based on what happened, Mike is going to look at Pam as the bad person because he is like, see, this is what happens, man. When you tell women, see, women always want men to say how we feel, how we, you know, think and everything. But then as soon as we tell them the ugly truth, then they want to walk off because they can't handle it. Because to be fair, Mike did say, if I honestly tell you, then you're going to leave. And that's exactly what happened. So this was a well-acted scene. I like the, you know, camaraderie between Pam and Andy, but because this played out exactly how I predicted, but I don't think this was a good look for Pam. I mean, she obviously looks good, so it really doesn't matter how she acts because her smile lights up a room. And Andy was just very, very Andy. It's just that I don't like how this was yet again a clear sign of how women think men are all dogs when that isn't the case. I'm not saying Mike is a saint. For the love of God, I'm not saying Mike is a saint. What I'm saying is he literally was at a major disadvantage and he wasn't even able to speak his side of the story, even though things really didn't look good because of the way he begged, but then shut down Pam about coming over. And yeah, that's really all I got to say. I'm pretty sure I got more, but I know this video is probably like 30 minutes long or close to 22. I don't know. I lost track of time because there's so much to talk about. So the Tom scene, very good. The Pam, Andy, and Mike scene, very good. The Bill scene, I could have done without, or at the very least trimmed down to about 3 minutes. I don't know. I feel like that really messed up the pacing of this episode. From the very emotional scene at Mike's loft to the tent scene at Tom's place, and we get a dragged out, not really comedic scene at the sandwich shop between Bill, Alice, and John. But that's all I got to say. 6 out of 10. It definitely could have been better in some areas, but I really thought it was very good for what it was. Please, we need to see Pam hang out with the sisters crew. I would like that. Not to mention, what about the fellas? You know? I mean, Mike, or let's say, I don't know, what if Tom showed up at the hospital showed up in the hospital room to check on Zach after he got stabbed, or, Maurice. I did a post about that kind of stuff. But in any case, yeah, I thought it was an okay episode. This definitely wasn't a solid finale because the Bill scene just really messed up the flow. It really did. Like, I mean, what about the whole Charlie thing? Charlie stopped by to fix the leak and whatnot. I mean, I thought we would have at least gotten follow-up. Like, maybe we could have had John and Alice getting the shop ready for business and whatnot. Because, Bill, no, actually, he was already open because customers were there. But I mean, like, we could have had Alice and John talking for a little bit about Charlie and everything. And then Bill could have came over. But no, we just have him being an insensitive jerk and going to stalk Regina. So there's that. All right. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And yeah, thanks Tyler Perry and the cast and crew for bruh. I thought this was a pretty solid season. I feel like it had more ups than downs. Yes, there were several things I didn't like about season 1, but I honestly feel like this was a very good show in regards to, for once, being one of the few shows with a solid cast of, black males, actors, and, their different walks of life, but they're bros. I had some emotional episode reviews. I had some episode reviews where the episodes weren't that good, but overall, I do feel like there was a lot of relatability. Same with Sisters, but like I said, I will save the brawl, if you will, for the Sisters versus Bruh season 1 review. The female actors from Miss Alice, who can be a bit over the top at the time, but she got a heart of gold. Regina, Charlie, Pam, Valerie. Great stuff. Great stuff. So with that being said, that's it. Like I said, I'll have my season 1 review and Sisters versus Bruh video coming between now and next week. Obviously, there's no rush because after this episode, I think Sisters, House of Pain, and Assisted Living are the only shows for me to review next week. Then the following week, we have the return of the Haves and Have-Nots and Ruthless. But remember, that is the week of the Thanksgiving. I don't know when I'm going home or how long I'm going home, so just keep that in mind. Maybe videos might not be on schedule, but I will do them eventually. And with that being said, let me know your thoughts on the Bruh Season 1 finale, Bad Cologne. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And if you would like to donate to the channel, feel free to do so by hitting me up on PayPal, Cash App, or joining Patreon for as little as $1 a month. And with that being said, I will talk to you soon. Who knows? Maybe I'll have a cast member have an interview with me. Who knows? Maybe I've already kind of set one up. I don't know. You'll find out. But just know I actually did one with Valerie earlier this year. So be sure to check that out. And I'll talk to you soon.